Hello and welcome. This is Business at 9. I'm Shivani Gharat. Now, according to a new Kantar study, television continues to hold a strategic advantage amongst India's affluent households, even as major FMCG brands witness slipping brand equity and market penetration within this fast-growing segment. Now, the research reveals that urban affluent households classified as NCCSA have nearly doubled over the past 5 years, yet many large FMCG players are failing to translate this demographic growth into sustained volume and brand equity gains. The study underscores television's ongoing relevance for brand building, especially when paired with digital platforms, as affluent viewers in fact still contribute a significant share of the overall TV engagement, outpacing digital in key metrics like attention and comprehension. Now we go live to Biswapriya Bhattacharya ji from Kantar, who's also a co-author of this report, to unpack what these findings mean for brands navigating the changing Indian media landscape. Biswapriya, welcome to ET Now. Now, your study shows 20% of large FMCG brands lost penetration and 30% lost volume share amongst the affluent NCCSA households. What are the primary drivers behind this decline? Is it competitive intensity, changing consumer behavior, or something else?
Yeah, I think it's finally what it boils down to is the fact that you are not creating enough meaningfulness and differentiation for your customers. For any brand to succeed today, you have to kind of be able to predispose more people towards your brand and be more present where it matters. Now, if a brand is not able to do that, it's not able to identify the right segments to predispose them and to be present with them on, and build that right meaningfulness and right differentiation, you will always struggle. So it is, and it is a competitive environment. So competition is intensifying, and therefore you will always have to continue to evolve and reinvent yourself at every point in time. The fact of the matter at the end of the day is how well you are doing that, keeping in mind your customers, who in this case that we are talking about are the affluent NCCSA customers as such.
Now, also, creating the right differentiation is critical, as you mentioned. TV was a medium that, many of the brand experts and also, creative experts used to build brands in the past. Are they not able to, build gravitas for the brands because, these FMCG brands, because they are using less of TV?
I think that's one of the things which is to, when you look at being present, are you having the right media mix as such? And when we talk about the right media mix, it is important to understand that the consumers are not really static in terms of their media consumption today, right? So when it comes to any kind of media, when it comes to building up the right kind of media plan, you would need to be aware of what the consumers are looking for today. And today, the consumers are actually on multiple platforms. It's no longer that they are on only television. They are on television, but they are also on the digital and different kinds of digital platforms at that. So what is important for you or for that matter, for a brand at this point in time, is to ensure that they identify, again, the right set of target, the NCCSA customers. Where are they going into? What kind of platforms they are going into? What kind of traditional channels they are going into, and thereby identify what you should be focusing on. At this point in time, the challenge in the industry has been largely because of the fact that data has been scarce in terms of understanding what are the media that consumers use. And therefore, in many of the cases, marketeers are making assumptions in terms of how consumer sentiments have changed or consumers' consumption towards media has changed.
For FMCG marketers specifically, according to you, what would an effective media mix look like today? And how does it differ from, let's say, 3 to 5 years ago?
Well, so I think the first and foremost is when we are talking about an FMCG marketer in the context of an affluent consumer, which is an NCCSA consumer, it is important to have television in the mix, right? If you do not have television, then of course it's a challenge, and that's what we have said. At the same time, you cannot stay away from digital. Digital has to be an important constituent because within the affluent segment as well, there are certain cohorts where digital is higher in terms of their incidence and reach than what television is. So you'd also need to look at digital as a part of the mix. And finally, there are about 25% of audiences who are not on television at all or not on any of the traditional media at all. They're only on digital. So you have to have strategies for them. So no longer is it possible for an FMCG marketer to look at a single cohort of NCCSA and say that I would do a single plan for that. You would actually have to start segmenting, breaking it down, and look at the various media mix and plan your media accordingly. That is what is most important at this point in time.
Now, I looked at the research, and the research, sort of criticizes a push towards short-term performance metrics. So how can brands effectively balance short-term ROI goals with the need for long-term equity building?
I don't think we say that you should not look at short-term goals. What we are saying is that it is important for you to focus on and build on your long-term brands. You need to build on your brand equity. If you are able to build on your brand equity, your short-term measures will, or your short-term goals will get addressed automatically. And therefore, if you are focused on building your brand to becoming more meaningful and more differentiated, you would start seeing the results coming in terms of your short-term sales as well, because you are then present at the right places. You are able to build higher number of people to be predisposed towards your brand. And once you have done that, you are able to garner a lot more share of the market. So therefore, what we continue to say is that it's important to focus on longer term. You cannot really focus on short term and look away from the longer term. While looking at and having a plan for the longer term, if you are doing short-term goal settings and working towards that, by all means, you need to do demand generation activities, etc., which is perfectly fine, but they have to align with your longer-term goals.
Now, let's touch upon the creative and content strategy a bit. How should brands tailor creatives for affluent audiences, especially at a time when premiumization has been such a huge trend for the past couple of years?
I think one of the things that is increasingly becoming evident across all the work that we have been doing is that when it comes to the affluent users, and for that matter, any of the others, it is important for the brands to build creatives which tell a story, which build relevance for them. It is important for the consumers to relate to it, to see something where they are connecting with as such, which is where we talk about being meaningful to them. It is also important in today's day and age to have a message which is more positive, a narrative which is more positive. And in a current scenario, it is also about how you connect with the larger community as such, wherever possible. So messages which are of positivity, which are of nature, which connects with them a lot more, makes a lot more sense. At the same time, what we are also seeing is that you need to finally give them something tangible. You need to show why you are relevant to them in your message as well. So you need to showcase your differentiation when it comes to the category that you are in, and therefore you give them enough reasons to purchase you.
Now, Now, looking ahead to next year's media landscape, what are the biggest opportunities and challenges for FMCG brands? Let's say trying to maintain or grow equity amongst both the mass and the affluent Indian consumer.
I think the first and foremost, I think the one that you spoke about, the conundrum between long term versus short term, and how do you address that? And I think it's very clear you need to focus on the longer term while we look at the short term. The second is the lack of data for planning as such is also very important, because a lot of planning happens on data that are pre-COVID era. And therefore, you need to start using data which are more recent, the data that are as of today, as of this quarter, as against what is 4 to 5 years old. The third aspect, which is important, is to know where your brand stands, what your brand equity is today. And therefore, are you building towards getting the right brand equity and aligning your messaging, your actions to that? And finally, it is all about ensuring that you are measuring yourself and your brands, your creatives on a regular basis. If you're not doing that, of course, you do not know if you're actually getting the right ROI for the investments that you're making.
Now, coming to your point on data and the lack of unified data could also pose as a challenge for brands to create effective TV plus digital strategy going forward. Can you tell us more on that and how to solve for this?
Yeah, I mean, that's been the gap that has been there in the market. Of course, Kantar has bridged that gap in the last 6 months to a year by bringing in a unified measurement solution. But that has been a challenge that the marketer has had always. Apart from the fact that all the data points, apart from the traditional data points that were being used for media measurement has been rather old. Some of them, as I said, pre-COVID.
Well, thank you, Priya, for all of those insights and, sharing your thoughts on how FMCG brands can reach out to the affluent consumers. And now it is time for an ET Now news break, which was confirmed, where Shriram Finance Board has approved raising funds from MUFG Bank through a preferential issue, marking the largest foreign investment in the India's financial services sector. Mithali is here with all the details on this. Mithali, over to you.
Right, so after zooming 57% year-to-date, Shriram Finance has again made it to the spotlight after MUFG Bank has announced a 20% stake acquisition in the NBFC, and the deal size is worth 39,621 odd crores. Now, the transaction price for this deal is going to be around 840.93 per share and will be done through a fresh preferential allotment with no offer for sale whatsoever. Now, this makes this largest FDI deal for the BFSI sector whatsoever, and also for MUFG, this is going to be the largest ever investment that they have made in India. Now, post deal, if you see, the promoter holding is supposed to reduce to 20.4% from the existing 25.4%, and also MUFG will be getting 2 board seats, minority protection rights and preemptive rights to maintain this their stake. Shareholder approval will be sought in an AGM that is scheduled on January 14, 2026. Now, this deal is highly accretive because it was executed at a premium of 838.93 over the face value of rupees 2, and Shriram Finance price to book value has dropped to 2.12 times post this deal from its existing 2.69 times price to book. Also, MUFG has given the guidance that it expects the return on equity for Shriram Finance to around 12% in the medium to long term. Strategically, MUFG's capital will accelerate growth for Shriram Finance in ways in commercial vehicle financing, MSME and retail lending, also logistics and transport, and the financial inclusion. There is also potential for the customer referrals from the portfolio that MUFG holds, apart from the Japanese OEM relationships and the global network it has. On the asset quality front, we have seen that Shriram Finance continues to perform quite stable, be it the GNPA or the NNPA margins. And also, with MUFG taking this acquisition in the Shriram Finance, this stands out to be a quite significant financial deal that the BFSI has ever witnessed.
Thank you, Mitali, for those details. Now, we also spoke to ex-chairman of Shriram Value Services, Arun Duggal, on what this acquisition signifies and the larger story. He says MUFG is one of the best partners to have in Japan. Listen in.
A financial services industry, as you know, is always requiring capital. And this injection of capital will position Shriram Finance for many, many years to come to continue to serve the small borrowers. We started by serving second-hand truck owners, and now it's expanded in many areas. So, in summary, a very important transaction, a very important new partnership with the Japanese. We want to have, or the group wants to have, very large capital base so that it can continue to expand and grow without any capital constraints. I think it's a highly respected group worldwide and one of the best partners to have in Japan. So I think Shriram Group has done the right thing by partnering. I think it will impact cost of funds favorably, but I cannot comment on how much.
Well, now let's turn focus to how did the markets perform this week. The benchmark index Nifty failed to snap the two-week decline and continued its downward rally. Key sectors such as PSU, Bank, Realty slipped while Nifty IT reported gains. Rabinder joins us now with the details.
Well, as the Indian market ended largely in red in this week, and if we talk about Nifty 50 index, then Nifty 50 index and Sensex, both the indices were down 0.3 to 0.4%, and Nifty index declined for the third consecutive week. And if we talk about the gainers and losers of the Nifty 50 index this week, then top gainers of the Nifty 50 index was Shriram Finance. The Shriram Finance was the top gainers of the Nifty index this week, and for which is followed by Interglobe Aviation, Tata Consumer, Infosys and Tech Mahindra. And on the loser front, the Axis Bank, JSW Steel, Eternal and Sun Pharma was the top losers of the Nifty 50 index this week. And if we talk about broader indices, then Nifty mid cap on small cap, both the broader indices closes for almost flat this week. And talking about sectoral indices, then Nifty PSU Bank was the top sectoral gainers this week, snapping its two-week losing streak, mainly led by Bank of Baroda and State Bank of India. And Nifty Auto declined for the second straight week, mainly dragged by Exact Industry and Hero MotoCorp. And if we talk about Nifty Realty Index, then Nifty Realty Index 2 declined for the seventh consecutive week, and it is the longest losing streak in 2025 of the weekly losing streak of Nifty Realty Index in 2025. And Nifty IT closes in green above 1%, which is mainly led by Infosys and Tech Mahindra. And Nifty FMCG snap its two-week losing streak, which is dragged by Imami and United Breweries. And Nifty Pharma declined for the third consecutive week, which is mainly dragged by Ipca Lab and Sun Pharma. And if we talk about the Nifty Metal Index, then Nifty Metal Index snapped its three-week gaining streak, mainly dragged by Steel Authority of India and JSW Steel. And lastly, if we talk about Nifty Bank Index, then Nifty Bank Index 2 declined for the second consecutive week.
Well, thank you, Rabinder, for those details. Now, moving on, the Reserve Bank of India Governor Sanjay Malhotra voted for a 25 basis points rate cut in December on the back of the benign inflation outlook and to support growth. According to the minutes of the Monetary Policy Committee meeting released today, now the RBI cut the repo rate by 25 basis points to 5.25% on 5th December, citing a rare Goldilocks period where the growth remains robust and inflation benign, surprising a section of the market that expected a pause. Ankur joins in with more details. Over to you, Ankur.
Yes, MPC minutes are out, and RBI Governor Sanjay Malhotra has mentioned that domestic growth remains resilient, though momentum may moderate in second half of the current financial year. He also mentioned about inflation, whereby that has turned significantly softer, led by sharp correction in food prices, and therefore he has voted for 25 basis point rate cut. But interestingly, Rajesh Kumar has used the word Goldilocks moment, which is the balance of growth and inflation currently. Remember, this word was used by Reserve Bank of India Governor Sanjay Malhotra during the commentary which was there after the policy. But apart from that, Saugata Bhattacharya has also expressed that inflation has undershot forecast and underlying inflation is likely to remain below target. But he's saying that policy easing it's appropriate and the neutral stance should be maintained. But Ram Singh was a lone dissenter here, and he has favored a rate cut along with shift in stance to accommodative, while he is saying that low inflation can hurt profitability, investments and MSMEs. He also mentioned that economy is likely to operate below potential despite strong headline growth. Apart from that, if you talk about the comments from Indranil Bhattacharya, he is saying that growth has surprised on upside in H1, and that is supported by fiscal as well as monetary stimulus, and also mentioned about the record low inflation driven by food price deflation, which is ongoing currently. But he supported the neutral stance. Apart from that, RBI Deputy Governor Poonam Gupta has mentioned that global uncertainties have stabilized and there are no fresh shocks which are emerging currently. However, domestic growth momentum remains strong, though moderation is expected. She also mentioned that future course of policy action needs to be dependent on the data, and of course, she also supported 25 basis point rate cut along with neutral stance. So all in all, there has been clear-cut support for pedal on the growth. But having said that, the lone dissenter remained Mr. Ram Singh, who has gone for accommodative stance as well as commentary, which was there regarding the impact of low inflation.
Well, thank you, Ankur, for those details. Now, India's net direct tax collection rose 8% so far in the current financial year, aided by steady growth in corporate tax receipts and lower refunds. Prakash reported earlier in the day with all the details.
Well, the government has come out with the direct tax collection numbers up to December 17 in the current financial year, wherein net direct tax collections grew by 8% up to December 17, whereas gross direct tax collections grew by 4.16% to rupees 20 lakh crore. A very significant development coming in. When it comes to refund numbers, there's significant decrease in overall refund numbers, which is down by 13.52% as of December 17. There's significant decline in refund numbers primarily on the back of improved compliance and system upgrade. And as a result of drop in refunds, net collections grew by 8% to rupees 17.04 lakh crore. Corporate tax collections have seen significant rise, reaching rupees 8.17 lakh crore, up from rupees 7.39 lakh crore in the financial year 2024-25. When it comes to advanced tax collection numbers, advanced tax collections grew by 4.27% up to December 17, wherein advanced corporate tax collections grew by 7.98%, whereas there is a decline in advanced non-corporate tax, which is down by 6.49%.
Now, Bangladesh is once again on the edge. Tension has gripped Bangladesh following the death of anti-India leader Sharif Osman Hadi. Now, violent protests, arson and even lynching was witnessed in various parts of the country. There have been reports of media houses being set ablaze by radical protesters. Officers of Awami League have been attacked. Now, protesters have also demolished house of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, Indian High Commission in Dhaka, also witnessed unruly protests by extremist elements. Hadi was shot in the head last week by masked gunmen as he initiated his election campaign. His death has sparked a wave of violent protests across the country. Shrin Joy joined earlier with all the details.
the situation in Bangladesh seems to be deteriorating. In fact, the trouble started about a year ago, just before Sheikh Hasina had to leave Bangladesh for India. And it must be mentioned that since then, there have been no elections. And this, after a young protester died in Singapore, the troubles have really escalated. In fact, there have been protests, and wrongly, because the Indian government has nothing to do with it. Protests outside the Indian High Commission, the Indian mission in Chittagong, Chattogram, has been attacked, and there have been attacks on Awami League leaders and their houses. Now, all of this is very worrying for India and naturally for Bangladesh. It's important that peace returns to that country, and hopefully the elections will be held in February.
Well, with that, it's a wrap on Business at 9 from me, Shivani Gharat. Goodbye.